Let's see if we can model problems that involve dividing a whole number by a fraction that's not a unit fraction. In other words, a fraction where the numerator is not 1. So here we have a problem. Harris bought 4 pounds of cookies for his friends. He wants to give each friend 2/3 of a pound of cookies. How many of his friends will get cookies? So the first thing I want to do is I want to say to myself, I want to have an internal dialogue, and I want to say, what is it that I'm looking for? And what I'm looking for in this case is I want to know how many groups of 2/3 are in 4. And remember, you always want to just get to the meat of the problem. Okay, you want to get rid of all the words, you want to boil it down. In this case, if it's a division problem, we can ask ourselves how many groups of 2/3 are in 4. If I want to write an expression, I'm going to say, well, I have 4 pounds and I want to divide it equally into groups of 2/3. So what is that going to look like as an expression? It's going to be 4 divided by 2/3. Okay, so I have drawn 4 rectangles. Each rectangle represents a pound of cookies. And I want to divide it into groups of 2/3. Well, in order to do that, first I have to divide each pound into thirds, so into 3 equal parts. Okay, and each of these is going to be 1/3 of a pound. And again, it's always good to label. It gives you practice just modeling fractions, and it's always good if you're explaining how you solved a problem to someone else. So here I go. I have 4, and I want to divide it into groups of 2/3. Well, each piece is 1/3, and so each group is going to have 2/3 or 2 pieces. So I am just going to make groups of 2 pieces or 2/3. And you see there's a reason I put the rectangles next to each other. It makes it easier to group the 2/3. And then I'm merely going to count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 groups. And so I know that 4 divided by 2/3 is going to be equal to 6. And of course, once I turn it into this form, it becomes an equation. And so my equation is 4 divided by 2/3 equals 6. And this is my model. And it's fairly straightforward. And obviously, you're going to move on to the algorithm or the shortcut. But again, this is going to help us understand dividing by a fraction, whether it's a whole number or a mixed number or another fraction. Let's take one more example. And this is just an expression. Okay, 5 divided by 2, 6, but I still want to put it in the form of the question just to help me understand. So I want to know how many groups of 2/6 are in 5. Okay, and again, we're going to look at the denominator of the fraction to see how many pieces we have to divide each rectangle into, and we have to divide each rectangle into 6 pieces. So again, it's easier to divide rectangles in half and then each half into thirds. And in this case, I'm not going to label every piece, but I will label a few, because if I label 2 rectangles, it shows that I have the hang of it. I know 6 pieces. Each piece is going to be a sixth. How many pieces? I want each piece, each group to have 2 pieces, right? This is the number of pieces in each group. Okay, and so I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to divide into groups of 2 pieces, and follow that through all the way until I get all my groups. And I could count them individually, but I can see that each one of these rectangles has 3 groups. There are 5 of them, and 3 times 5 is going to be 15. And so I know that I know that that's a very thick line. I know that 5 divided by 2/6 is going to be 15. And you know what? If you know your equivalent fractions, you can actually make this even simpler, because you can say, oh, look, I have 5 and 2/6 is equal to 1/3. So you can do 5 divided by 1/3, and then I'm looking for groups that each have 1 piece in it, and there are 15 pieces. Okay, so that's the way we model fraction division. However, you may notice that the answer to both of these problems is a whole number. That's because it's a whole other ballgame when you talk about fraction division where there is a remainder, and that is what will be covered in the next video.